Hello, this is your host Akhil Navluri, and welcome to the brand new episode of the Techo Space podcast series. In this podcast episode, I'm honored and thrilled to welcome one of the most eminent and prominent industry leaders pertaining to the IT space, and we are catching up with him from another part of the world, and that happens to be Arlington, Virginia, the USA. And he is none other than Mr. Pat McGowan, who's the CEO of his company Cloudwell, and also the regional leader for the Microsoft Global Community Initiative pertaining to the Microsoft community. So, Pat, it gives me an absolute pleasure to welcome you to this podcast initiative of mine. So, Pat, before we kickstart, I just wanted to understand like how are things in Virginia and how are you doing yourself?
Yeah, thank you. Well, first off, thanks for having me, Akil. I really appreciate it. It's been great connecting with you just to learn more about you and your journey. And I'm happy to be here to share mine. Things are moving along in Arlington. I'm just outside of Washington D.C., so obviously
Oh,
there's a lot happening here. But from a business perspective, business is all well and good. Our organization doesn't work with the federal government, so we're not having to immediately deal with a lot of this shutdown that's happening, et cetera. So we're good from that perspective, but an eventful place nonetheless here in Arlington.
that's amazing to know. Pat. So, Pat, recently I have just moved to Sydney, and I'm just liking the vibe here in Sydney. If I, would just like to give a walkthrough what how things are for me here. So I just was in an Appian event yesterday, and it was really good. Understanding about the Appian technology and meeting a lot of people pertaining to the Appian space, and also talking about Sydney summer. It's the best summer, I could say, for sure.
Hmm. That's amazing. I've never been, but it's definitely on the list of places to travel in the world. So
Definitely,
I'll have to get
definitely.
a coffee when I make it over there.
Surely, surely. Once you're in Sydney, I could just take you around and you could just, let me know what your plan is.
Incredible. Thank you.
All right. All right, Pat. So, so let's begin, with our podcast session. So, Pat, can you just give me, a timeline of your journey in the IT industry?
Sure. Yeah. So my journey started back in 2002, and it started right after high school. I didn't really have a plan for college. I wasn't the best student, but I will say I was always tinkering with technology. As a really young kid. So I was hopeful. Really just hopeful to get an opportunity. So when I graduated in the summer of 2002. I got an opportunity with an organization. Shout out to Dave Truitt, runs a local ServiceNow company. But got an opportunity to join the team. They had actually recently fired, or the receptionist had left, and so they needed someone to, sit at the front desk and greet people, answer the phone, along with other, office responsibilities. And I said, you know what, if you're gonna, pay me, a couple dollars an hour to sit at a desk in front of a computer, I'd be more than happy to, right?
Yeah.
So I took that opportunity, and that organization was primarily focused on staffing opportunities at that time, back in 2002, kind of turn of the century, things where, staffing was a big thing. Um, CEO, very smart guy, he noticed that some of the higher paying opportunities were around this technology called SharePoint. So about 2003, they started to evolve the business, and one of the specialized practice areas was on this SharePoint technology. If anybody knows anything about SharePoint from way back when, while it was a great technology, there was a common saying, can you make SharePoint not look like SharePoint, right? So, and what we were focused on as a team was building, critical business applications on top of SharePoint as a platform. And so, functioned great, solved real world problems, but just did not look great. So I was lucky enough to get added to that team, given my experience around and self teaching around web design. Typically,
Mhm.
I was doing Macromedia Flash, HTML, CSS. That's really the area I tinkered, and the folks on the team were highly technical and highly skilled in writing code and on SharePoint as a new platform, but the UI skills were not that great. So we were
Okay.
able to kind of blend my expertise with their expertise, and really start to build some incredible solutions. And I think that that really, without any sort of formal plan, is what sparked my career. And it's been SharePoint and everything that has come along with it, and Microsoft 365 and
Mhm.
Copilot and AI, and I've never looked back.
That's amazing. I mean, that's a beautiful journey. Pat. Now, Pat, what was your immediate reaction when you just came upon this this concept called SharePoint in your life? Did you feel that that's going to be a game changer for you, or did you feel that okay, I'm just getting used to it now, and we'll see how things speed past from here?
Yeah, so as SharePoint was really emerging back then, I personally was just curious, right? And so if you remember how technology was delivered, software was delivered way back when, it was on discs and CDs, right? So, I remember one of my colleagues, he had his MSD on subscription, right? And, he gave me a copy of his software so I could set up my own personal development environment. And if anyone recalls what building a SharePoint environment entailed way back when, it was a lot. It took a long time, and there was a lot of waiting. But you had to really understand the technology through and through just to set it up, just to configure it. And so that really set the foundation early on for me in terms of what it took to operate and be an expert with SharePoint. But you had to learn all of the plumbing that goes on behind the scenes, not just the SharePoint interface. So all
Yep.
of the service applications, the index, like everything, you had to configure it all. Um, and of course, you had to troubleshoot it. So
Yep.
it taught me a lot way back when, and that's how I operated. I operated by just being curious, right? Like, oh, what does this service application do? What does the index do in search? Like people service, like just staying curious and really trying to understand and wrap my head around every little component or facet of SharePoint is, eventually I think what led me to where I am today.
That's very insightful, Pat. Now I just get an understanding and about the excellence of SharePoint now. So Pat, I just wanted to understand this. Like, what was your source of inspiration and drive, to start your company, Cloudwell?
Mhm. Yeah. So, at that first company I worked for, they it was a great company. Ultimately, it was acquired, no longer exists. People moved on in their journeys. But I learned a lot about, my professional, like how to be a professional, how businesses operate. I always had, a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit in me, and I always loved building things. So, there were things that I thought were great and I loved, and there were some takeaways that I felt like maybe if I got the opportunity to do something on my own, I'd do it a little bit different. And we could be our own version of great, right? And so that experience, and just getting to know other individuals and learn that business savvy is what inspired me. I did. It was interesting. Uh, After the organization, I think I was 12th employee of that company, which really scaled
Okay.
up to be over 100 employees.
All right.
But I got an opportunity to, after that organization saw success with a young talent, they had the idea of, hey, let's do some college recruiting. Let's bring in some new graduates and let's kind of you know, you know, do what we did with Pat, right, with others. And they brought in some college hires. They had me speak to these young kids, and I was still young. I was in my early 20s, but I had started to build a resume and some success. So they
Right.
had me speak to them, and I got a chance to interview one person in particular, Chris Aleko, who in turn is now my business partner at Cloudwell.
Oh.
And so that really cool. And I think I knew very early on, in speaking with Chris and interviewing him that day, how many similarities we had. We had the same tinkering hobbies. um, you know, I had an engineering mindset, he had a developer mindset. And so when we took those two mindsets together,
Yep.
that's what inspired and built Cloudwell.
That's amazing, Pat. Now, Pat, when we talk about the recruitment system, let's say, recruiting, graduates from the university, I wanted to understand in the US, are they, hiring people or let's say hiring the students on a zonal way? Zonal, can it be, from the East Coast? Can it be from the West Coast, or can it be from the Midwest? Like, what is the plan, behind that?
Right, right. So back in 2000 and let's call it eight, right? 2007, 2008, probably when that cycle was happening. I think a few things. Obviously, this was pre-COVID, pre-Microsoft Teams, Slack. pre-remote workforce,
Yeah,
approach to
yeah.
things. And also that organization was heavily focused on federal contracting. So there was very much a, in person in the office or at the client site every single day. Nowadays the landscape has entirely changed, but one of the things that, we felt we could achieve was building an organization that could operate lean but efficiently and scale our support of clients um, to heights that I think most people can't really see how a small organization can achieve that. The
Right.
ability to support hundreds of clients on a monthly basis, right, is not an easy task.
Yep.
So we felt we could do that just by number one, adopting these remote technologies. When we first started Cloudwell back in 2012, it was you had Skype for Business, you had Link, LCS, OCS, Office Communication Server. So we were using these tools early on, and so it just became the way that we did our work. And we found a workflow that was just efficient. And the biggest thing about working at Cloudwell, I think, is being highly collaborative as a person will lead to success. And so that's definitely one of our key foundational components of what makes us who we are.
That's amazing, Pat. Now, Pat, heading on, now I'll just, give you this consideration, or let's say, make you understand in this particular, way that, you as an entrepreneur, from an entrepreneurial side, since you have started your company, Cloudwell. So when you started your company, did you have that optimistic approach, or were you feeling that, okay, I'll find my way out, but I feel, the road is a little bit difficult, to watch by, or let's say to climb the stairs. So what was your initial approach like?
So, I think it started like very early on in my career. And it was about, upskilling, learning from others, demonstrating my expertise, sharing my expertise, and just learning some more. I think one of the biggest things, and I always draw inspiration back to Microsoft, around the turn when Satya, became the CEO and what he did and how that transformed Microsoft. Um, where he opened the doors. He said, "We'll integrate with you, right? We'll be open
Wow.
source."
Yep.
And that was
Mhm.
such a huge shift. But in that is where I believe truly partnerships are so important, right? And partnerships, when they go both ways, everyone can see the success from that partnership. So um I think that is extremely important.
That's brilliant, Pat. By the way, Pat, Satya Nadella actually comes from the place where I belong to. I'm from Hyderabad, and he's also a Hyderabad person.
Mhm.
So, we are so proud of the fact that our person has made all the way in Microsoft, and we just look up to him always.
Of course, yeah, he's an incredible person. And I think in any way, you can draw inspiration from what it means to be a partner, and how that can be mutually beneficial for both parties.
Absolutely, absolutely, Pat. Now, Pat, heading a little bit, or let's say, going a little bit deep about your company, Cloudwell, I wanted to understand, like, being the CEO of your company, what are your core areas of practice?
Sure. Yeah. So Cloudwell has two primary areas of practice. We have our consulting services, which take stemming from our SharePoint expertise, building up into as it evolved with SharePoint Online, Microsoft 365. We help organizations build and support critical business applications on top of the Microsoft 365 and Azure platforms. So whether it's building a SharePoint intranet and developing or guiding organizations how to build agents on top of their SharePoint sites and utilizing that within Teams, or using the Power platform to automate business processes, with transformative flows, or Dataverse and Power Pages with agentic functionality, all the way through to full stack development, right? So that's what
Yep.
we support from a consulting services perspective. And then
Okay.
just through the 23 years of experience of building, critical business applications and identifying repeatable apps, right? We were able to develop our app line of business, and these are apps that are some of the top SharePoint apps in the SharePoint store. They function in teams, and they solve, core, business challenges. Things like, our calendar overlay, which visualizes multiple calendars in one view in SharePoint and Teams, or a staff directory, right? Who doesn't need a highly functional, highly customizable one of those, in their organization. So, and what's been fun with the app side of Cloudwell is, that came from all of our experience of our consulting services. And what we really enjoy is the continuous feedback we get from our customers that allows us to just evolve our apps that much more, add new features. We probably ship 2 new releases of our apps every month, and it just continues to get better. Now we get to start having fun with some of the new AI experiences within our apps, and so it's just continuing to grow and get better, as time goes on. So really love that. It's really about improving these solutions, listening to our customers' feedback, and the cycle continues.
That's awesome. I mean, that's very much inspirational. Let's say, I want to, try my hands on SharePoint right now, since you have, just given me the understanding and the excellence that's pertaining to it. Now, I would just like to understand this, Pat, like, on a technical note, I would just like to go a little bit core, or let's say technical now. So I'm pretty much aware of the fact that, in Microsoft Power Automate, you have a backend technology, or let's say a low-code, no-code technology called Power Apps. So as a techie myself, I just wanted to understand, do you feel that SharePoint and Power Apps have an integration together, or do they go separate in a separate track?
Yeah. So I think, they're better together, right? And I think that's just because when used in the right way, you can tell really a cohesive story, whereas you're just delivering an app or, a page separately. When put together, there's a cohesive experience and story that you can tell a user, and you just have the ability to do that much more with it. So, yeah, I think the story is better together, right?
Yep, absolutely. So when we talk about, the integration together, and since you told that, they blend together, so is there any scripting language that, that Power Apps has in the backend, when it's, getting integrated with the, with the SharePoint?
Yeah, well, so there are some, a couple of different things you can do. You know, when talking integrations, that's where I'd lean on Power Automate, right? Where you can build a flow that takes data from one place to another, or an automation that gets triggered based on an action. So, that's where you can start to, simplest example, you have an anonymous form that you want to collect information on from people, on your social channel. You can do that with the Microsoft form, but say you want that data to flow into your database of people who have engaged with you. So you could do that, with a Power App. The data could get fed into Dataverse, or it could get fed into a SharePoint list. And now you've really got not just a form collecting data, but you've got an entire solution that you can use and run with and build on top of as you need more features and functionality.
Awesome. That's amazing, Pat. Now heading on, with respect to the Microsoft community side, I wanted to understand, like, would you like to, give me a shed light, or let's say, would you like to, shed a spotlight pertaining to your stint being the, the regional leader for the Microsoft Global Community Initiative of the Microsoft community? So what goes on with that?
Sure. Yeah. So the MGCI, Microsoft Global Community Initiative, it's a community-led, supported by Microsoft initiative that really focuses on making tech education accessible to all. I think the important thing here is, we can all see how rapidly technology is evolving, today. I mean, new features are shipping daily, new platforms, AI, right? Just AI is probably all I need to say there about that.
Absolutely.
And so, upskilling and technical skilling is just continually becoming more and more important. And so the MGCI's initiative is really to create opportunities for bringing people together to help learn, connect, and grow as technical professionals. One great example of this is we've got I'm currently organizing a Microsoft Ignite watch party at the local innovation hub here at the Microsoft Innovation Hub in Arlington. And,
Okay.
We are not just going to be live streaming the keynote, but we're also going to have some learning sessions with speakers that are MCTs and MVPs. And we're also doing
Hmm.
an unconference format where we're going to have expert panels to discuss, all the latest and greatest in AI and Microsoft 365. So opportunities like that, right? These are free or low cost events that you could go to and you could, network, maybe find your next job or meet your next colleague and learn all at the same time. I think one thing that's important to note too about the MGCI and what we do and what I do as a regional leader, it's making people aware that this exists, right? And there's a great website out there, communitydays.org, spearheaded by a friend of mine, Tom Daly. And this is a website that lists all local tech community events, local to you, and you can search across the globe and find something happening near you that you can use to grow your professional career. So definitely go check that out, communitydays.org if you haven't, and find your next great event.
All
Hopefully
right.
we can see you at one of those sometime.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, when it comes to when it comes to the Microsoft community events, do you think there is a plan lined up for you in the APAC region, let's say in Sydney, Melbourne, or for that matter in India? Like, I mean, are any plans getting straight out to that track?
Not currently, but I'm very much open to the opportunity. I'll say there very much are certain core events I hit annually. Next one will be up in New England here at the um, Collab Days New England. But I would love to, hit the other side of the world and hit some of those opportunities. I know there's a big community out there, and I have spoken to those communities on some tech user group presentations, but have never been in person. So open to the invitation if you've got
Awesome.
one, Akil.
Amazing. Pat, given an opportunity, I would, just love to, fly over to the US if there's any opportunity, like, and, probably helping you out with the hosting because I'm pretty much good in hosting and being part of the event on the whole. So that would completely, make a very good, it would be really impactful and effective for me. Now, in
Mhm.
my listeners, there might be questions from people who I would say that, Pat, if I join the Microsoft community event, what are the key takeaways that I can grab from the same?
Yeah. So the key takeaways, that I've really been able to see are, the ability for people to come together, right? Whereas if we look at ourselves, my company, your company, perspective, we could be, seeing that other regional leaders, board members can be competitors, right? But the reality of it is, the need for technology and the need for solutions is so great that I think we all achieve more when we're sharing and working together. And so it really is a demonstration of how people can come together who might be competitors to build something and support a community for greater good. So that's
Okay.
been really incredible and inspiring to see how we can really come together and help foster this initiative for future growth.
That's brilliant, Pat. Pat, recently I have just, I've done a podcast, with two MVPs, and one MVP happened to be from Netherlands and one happened to be from Australia. And, they
Mhm.
were also very much noted people. And I asked them, what was the roadmap? Now, I will ask you that same question. To be a Microsoft MVP, what was that groundwork? And, let's say that key initiatives taken by you to reach that leaderboard. And how would that act as, a potential roadmap or let's say a guidebook for our listeners? Firstly, Pat, I would really look up to you since you're a Microsoft MVP. So, but I'll be very happy if you could, give me a complete understanding about, what went with that.
Yep, absolutely. So my journey to becoming an MVP, this one actually goes all the way back to the beginning of my career and that first opportunity I got. Some of the other folks that were foundational to the start of that SharePoint practice were SharePoint MVPs way in the early 2000s, right when that platform was emerging. So it was cool to work alongside those folks, but it was also inspirational to me to say, hey, I think I have the ability to achieve that one day. And what I learned about that is just watching how my colleagues operated, Whether it was keeping a blog, right? Which, that all starts with, when you create a blog that's got, useful content, others will find you and you're going to help solve problems, right? And if you're helping solving problems, you're identifying problems, and Microsoft wants to understand where their problems are so they can resolve those as well. So my journey started there, working with a few, and then as I moved on from that company, I wanted to build the foundation of Cloudwell, and once I was able to do so, I really started to go down further with my MVP journey, and that involved writing blog posts, joining the MGCI, and speaking at different events, going to different events, and just learning from others as well, right? And contributing not just blogs, but content in open GitHub repos for the Microsoft tech community, right? So there's one community in particular that I spend a lot of my time in. It's the Microsoft PnP community, and it's a really amazing open source community that's also supported by Microsoft, with tons of great code examples, blog posts, biweekly meetings. And so it's a place that you can go and learn a lot from some very smart people. And the whole mantra is sharing is caring. And that really is, the foundation of my journey to becoming an MVP. It was sharing is caring, putting yourself out there, and you'll realize that people are just here to support you, and grow and learn from you as well. So, really that was the biggest thing. And I'd say one other area of importance is sharing your feedback, not just to the community, but to Microsoft. Believe it or not, those little feedback buttons actually get read, right?
Yeah.
The in-app feedback buttons get read, and people will reach out to you. So yeah, so I'm incredibly honored to be an MVP, and I hope I can continue to remain that for many years and decades to come. But for anyone that's interested, really know that putting your thoughts on paper, staying curious,
Yep.
and sharing feedback are the keys.
That's brilliant. When we talk about that feedback button, how many people did you hear back from, Pat? Like, what was the total count for that?
Um, I don't know. But I will say through my MVP channel with Microsoft, I have the ability to have those, one-on-one connections to share in-app feedback, to see my feedback actually turn into a feature or a bug fix, and have that ship. It is incredible. That's the sort of impact that an MVP can have, globally. So yeah, really, really cool.
Yeah. Since I totally understand, the IT world is completely global and completely, let's say diverse. So did you receive any feedback that was in a complete foreign language, like let's say, on the terms of Arabic or Spanish or French? Like when you received that, how did you,
So okay,
help out with that?
not from well, actually that's not true. Yes, we have. This is on the for being an app developer ourselves at Cloudwell, we have customers all over the world. And Copilot has made it even easier if we need the assistance for translation. But all of our emails now just get automatically translated right in Outlook.
Okay.
And it's like, being a global app provider, if you know how to use the right tools the right way, you can, do that successfully very, very easily. And, we were able to do that. I think we're about 5 years into, being in the App Store.
Mhm.
And, we had global app customers very early on. And so, we use the Microsoft translator tools, but again, now everything is very streamlined. And so those are just some of the ways
Yeah.
that you can use these emerging tools for success.
Indeed, indeed. But when we talk about these, pre-Copilot days, these pre-automated emails, was there a problem of, translation all over the place before that?
Um, I think you had to, it was more of a manual process, right? You had to take
Yeah.
an email, throw it into a translator. hope words got translated the right way, right? And just much like, with English, every language is different. Words can be used different ways. The same word isn't used in every language for the same meaning. So I mean, even from an in-app experience, we had to evolve features, and utilize some language translation services to support global, but the tools were there and the tools are there. They're just a lot easier now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. During one of our previous conversations, Pat, you were just mentioning out, about MCTs. So I want to clearly understand, how are the MVPs, a little bit different from the MCTs?
Yep. So MCT, Microsoft Certified Trainer, and I'm not an expert on MCTs.
Okay.
But what I will say is that MCTs, they have an obligation to provide specific trainings annually, and that's kind of part of what they do. Whereas MVPs are more around product feedback and product engagement, specifically. So we are not necessarily trainers per se. But
Hmm.
there are a lot of MCPs or MCTs that are also MVPs. So definitely some similarities in there, but a little bit
Okay.
different. Mhm.
All right. All right. That completely explains the point to me. Now, Pat, can you give me a deep insight about your company, Cloudwell, and and getting that feeling of being the Microsoft Gold partner? But before you shared a feeling about that, I wanted to understand exactly what is the Microsoft Gold partner supposed to be like.
Yeah, so I think it really started at the beginning when my business partner Chris and I started Cloudwell. We always said step one, become a Microsoft partner, um, because that was our areas where we were operating in, right? And it makes complete sense. And then we started to understand how to utilize the benefits from the partnership. Um, and it started there, and then it opened the door to other opportunities and possibilities. Once becoming a Microsoft partner, you can go down certain paths, or specializations that make the most sense for what you do as a partner. For us, we were preferred in business applications. This was around when the Power Platform was first emerging. And so, we had the opportunity to do things like app in a day, flows in a day type opportunities for customers. And then we also were in the content services group. Unfortunately, that one's no longer, but that was around delivering content services and solutions on top of SharePoint. And then they started to pull in some of the AI stuff. So once you get into those channels, you start to get advanced insights into where the product roadmaps are going. And you also get the opportunity to share your feedback with the product teams based on what
Yep.
customers are saying. So, given those channels and given those opportunities, you really start to truly become the expert, organization in that space because of, your channels that you have and the opportunities that you have to expand on that. So, for us, it was really, it also showed us that Microsoft values our partnership. Microsoft values our feedback as a partner, and that those channels are important to them as well. So,
Yep.
for us, that I think the recognition that we were able to achieve in those areas really
Mhm.
highlighted what we were trying to do as an organization when starting Cloudwell.
Awesome. Now, why was this, the partner program put, in the first place? Like, why was it being categorized like gold, silver, platinum? I'm not pretty much aware of the categorization, but I'm just guessing it, gold, silver, bronze. So why was it like that?
Yeah, so there were different levels that you could achieve based on the number of people within your organization that, say, got certified with certain certifications. There were partner designations, like so you could list, clients that you were their designated Microsoft partner to support their environments. So there was, kind of like a grading scale, and once you could achieve a certain level, you could then, buy into that partnership level. And that's changed a bit now. It's no longer that kind of gold, silver,
Mhm.
type level, but there are definitely specializations and designations nowadays as well.
Specializations and designations, like what exactly do you infer by that?
Yeah. So, and this continues to evolve, so it might be different now than it was
Okay.
yesterday. But special designations based on consumption that you state in the partner center. There's a whole partner center that comes along with being a partner, and you can basically list who your clients are, and then their consumption metrics, what of the
Hmm.
services that they're using, how much of the services. And so it's a whole scale of things. It's kind of built or shifted more now for consumption and basis. So
Awesome. That's amazing, Pat. So now, Pat, I just wanted to understand, like, are there any success stories or interesting anecdotes that you've come across in your entire IT journey?
yeah. So I'd say my biggest lesson learned is that I think success really comes from teamwork and trust, right? You know, while there might be aha moments that individuals have from time to time, teamwork is what really drives success and growth. And so leaning on each other's areas of expertise, always listening, feedback really does shape better outcomes and better
Yep.
leaders. Staying curious, again, tech is evolving so fast right now. So, if you're complacent in your skill set, you're going to lack innovation and you're going to quickly be left in the past. Um, I think some of our biggest wins as an organization really started as um, ideas, right? Or the ability to say, yeah, we know that and we can do that, and delivering on that promise. I think one of the things I have in my other office is I've got some pictures up on the wall. One of them says the clouds and the other says the dirt. The clouds to me really represent the vision, right? Being a
Yep.
visionary, looking ahead to the future, whereas the dirt is putting in the work, right? Getting your hands dirty, what's happening right now to make that, vision real. So I think that to me is something I always look to lean in on. And then, just helps balance, I think, just vision and execution, right?
Awesome. Now, I mean, you just have worked on multiple projects. So let's say, plethora of projects. Now, out of all the projects, if you have to choose one, what was the most challenging one? And what was the one that, that required a lot of brainstorming since day one?
Hmm. Okay. This is a tough one. Well, right now, I'll say there's one that we're just entering in the development phase of, where
Oh,
we're getting the opportunity to build in some agentic experiences, using some of the AI services in Azure, and doing that right, is I think the most challenging thing. You're continually having new models become available to you. So model selection is important. The user experience is important. And so, it's a challenge, but what I love to see is the look on our clients' faces when you show them this experience
yeah.
and they say, "Oh wow, that's going to save so much time." Whether it's as simple as showing them how to build an agent, right, within
Yep.
SharePoint for their policies and procedures, or just today I had a meeting with a client and they were showing me their 88-page employee handbook, and I took that handbook, created an agent, right, and said, ask it a couple of questions, and they were like, our HR team is going to love this.
Oh,
So you just have just seeing their eyes light up with how much time and effort these experiences are saving, is really, really cool, really fun to watch.
that's amazing. As they say, right? Hard work always pays off. And finally, when you just work so much hard and, brainstorm a lot of things, and finally, when the business likes it, it's just the best thing that you could, just experience. Seriously.
Hmm. Hmm. Exactly. Yep.
But what I was trying to say is, I mean, I'll just give you a very hypothetical case. So, as I always they say, right, projects always have requirements. Based on a requirement only, we always, take forward with respect to the project. But let's say, a company, or let's say the government firm of particularly from a Pacific island has come to you, and what are the changes that you would like to, suggest with respect to the SharePoint integration and Microsoft integration for them?
Sure. So I think one of the biggest things, and this is a blog post that hopefully will be available for reading by the time this podcast is posted. I'm
Yep.
scheduled to publish it sometime this week. But one of the biggest things I think folks are not aware of are the experiences they get with a Copilot license. And
Mhm.
a lot of those experiences are within SharePoint, and you just don't know it. And they're amazing experiences around creating useful content um, or extracting metadata for better information architecture. And so, when a user gets a Copilot license, they immediately just go to, Copilot and they just start asking it questions, et cetera. And there's a whole nother subset of functionality you get that you
Yeah.
may not know ever exists unless you go to edit a page in SharePoint or you're working within a document library. So I love demonstrating those because those are, I think, where the real value adds start to shine when you start enabling some of those experiences.
That's awesome, Pat. Pat, before we actually, come to a close, or let's say conclude our podcast session, let's take a lighter route. All this while, I was, bombarding you with the questions of your journey, IT journey, about SharePoint, about how you got into the IT space, about all the insights, or let's say about the Microsoft community. But this time, a lighter route in the form of a rapid fire round. So rapid fire round is nothing technical, just your likes and interests, or let's say your hobbies. So, you know, so if you're ready, let's kick off with the rapid fire round.
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right. So, all right, Pat. So, since you're based out of the United States of America, I'm very much inquisitive to ask you this question. Like, what is your favorite sports team?
Yep, this one's tough because we just lost last night, but my favorite sports team is the Washington Commanders. They're the American football team. But it's just one game. It's early in the season, so I think we still have time to recover.
Awesome. So, if I have to, ask you this question, like, who is your favorite Washington Commanders player? Who would that be?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Our quarterback, who's in his second year, Jaden Daniels, he's just an incredibly inspiring kid to watch. His the way he carries himself for being only in his second year of a professional league is just incredible. He's so professional, always has a smile on his face. And
Okay,
I think anyone in any point of view can draw inspiration from a personality like that.
awesome. So, yeah, Pat, since I come from India and I have the Indian origin, I'm very interested to ask you this question. Like, what is your favorite Indian dish, and what would you name it to be?
Oh, that's a tough one because I love Indian food. I know that, especially curry. Any curry, the spicier the better.
Okay.
Although I know saying spicy, got to be careful with that one. So yeah, and I think this just I growing up, I ate a lot of cultural food. My mom is Latin American, so um,
Ah,
but I don't, I'll try anything at least once, and so I can't say I'd narrow it down to one single dish.
awesome. So, is there any place in India that you would like to visit? I mean, since you've tried the Indian food, I just
Yeah,
will be really keen to
yeah,
know
I
this.
would. I would love to visit Hyderabad, only because
Ah,
we've worked with numerous teams.
all right.
We've had a lot of clients who have teams in Hyderabad, and I also hear the Microsoft office is incredible over there. So that would
Yeah, yeah.
be probably first on my list.
Awesome. That's my hometown, and that's where the place I come from. And there was a deal struck, between us that if you come to Sydney, I'll take you around. But even if you come to Hyderabad, I'll take you around. So just feel free and just reach out. We would definitely
Wonderful.
catch
Yeah,
up.
thank you. That sounds amazing.
Awesome. That's good. And now, I mean, you have traveled in multiple countries, if I'm, since for multiple events. So out of all the countries that you have traveled, what is the country that, you just, struck you the most, or let's say fascinated you the most?
Um, I I would say, wow, that's tough because I'm partial to Colombia, South America, just because that's where my mom is from, and I went there a lot as a kid.
Oh, okay.
I got to spend a lot of my summers there, and so it was incredible to see that. But there are other countries like I don't know, call one out. I'd say Amsterdam. It was
Hmm.
an amazing experience of the city, the people, and how open and friendly folks are there was incredible. Was really incredible to see. So, but I think I could pick one from every country I've visited, and there's always some incredibly amazing and positive takeaways from any place you go.
Awesome. Yes, absolutely. The more you visit, the more you just understand the culture. And I'm a traveler myself, and I just love to travel around. And trust me, when I was in Melbourne, before I was in Melbourne, so every Saturday, Sunday, once I'm done with my assignment, I used to just take a hike around the city, and I used to experience new things for myself. And yeah, that helped me out a lot.
Yeah, I think walkabouts in any city, any place you go, just taking a walkabout helps you just get a feel for your surroundings, and it really helps you appreciate that much more. When you go exploring. So really, really
Absolutely.
cool.
Suppose, Pat, now I would just like to, ask you this. So suppose if I visit, your hometown, Arlington, Virginia, what is that place that you would like to, take me around for?
Yeah, I think so in Arlington, just across the river from Washington D.C. So very close to the National Mall, all of the monuments. Over in Arlington, there are some spectacular places to go there as well. Just across the river, the Arlington National Cemetery is a very much a sight to see. Um,
Okay.
and just really the neighborhoods, right? As you cross the river and get into Arlington, all the neighborhoods and how they transition from one to the next is really, really cool. It's really this urban area that is very unique.
Awesome. That's amazing. So the final question to you, Pat, in this rapid fire round. So what is your all-time favorite Hollywood movie?
All-time favorite Hollywood movie. This is wow. This is a tough one. I watch a lot of movies. Right
Mhm.
now, we're into as we are approaching um, Halloween here.
Okay.
We're very much in a scary movie, scary movie
Yeah.
theme. So um, tough to pinpoint, but one we're watching right now in the house because I have older teenager kids, and it's funny. We love Hubie Halloween on Netflix. It's an Adam Sandler movie. It's kind of
Oh,
a
right.
comedy. Yeah. So
Adam Sandler is hilarious, and his movies are also really fun.
definitely. Yeah. Yeah. It's a funny Halloween related flick.
All right. I would take that in my recommendations for sure. And yeah, that would be really awesome. Probably when I just fly back to India because I am going to India for Diwali because I have my festival coming up.
Okay.
So
Wonderful.
yeah. All right, Pat, it was wonderful and lovely catching up with you in this podcast session, and I just had an amazing time, conversing with you, on the lines of, the Microsoft community about your journey, about SharePoint, the way you were just talking about SharePoint and the passion that you were having, with respect to SharePoint really blew me, and I just loved every conversation that we had, and our insights just went all over the place. I mean, all over the place in the right way, not in the wrong ways, but yeah.
Of course.
And it was, it was a lovely conversation with you. So thank you so much for, taking time from your busy schedule and, being part of my podcast initiative.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having me, Akil. If anybody would like to reach out to me, feel free to find me and connect with me on LinkedIn. That's my primary space where I post a lot and share a lot. So, other than that, thank you for listening, and hopefully, I've been able to help guide you in your journey.
That's amazing, Pat. So yeah, listeners, on this note, this is your host, Akhil Navluri, signing off. We would be back with another podcast episode with another eminent industry leader very soon. Till then, keep listening, take care, stay tuned, goodbye, and over. And as Pat has just told you, just feel free to reach out, and yes, he'll help you out with any guidance that you require. All right, then.